Thank you for joining me here on Artbeat. And joining me today we have Eilis Kennedy, all the way from the west coast of Ireland. Eilis is one of the great Irish voices, and a few months ago you heard me interview Sean Davey, one of Ireland's quintessential composers. Eilis has done work with Sean Davey, along with many other illustrious Irish singers and musicians. First of all, though, Eilis, thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, Eilis, you grew up very much in a musical household. People played music, and it was that sort of quintessential Irish home, I think, where music is as much a part of the background as video games might be for many other families. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I think so. Well, more so, I suppose, songs rather than, instrumental music, although we all learned instruments. But I would say that there was a bit of a soundtrack to the growing up, all right. It's because of the area we live in, and also because both my parents and their parents also were teachers in primary school, and so because of that, you would teach probably a lot of songs in school, and that at home, then I suppose it also was part of every gathering and every occasion, and so we took it for granted that that's what happened really in everybody's house, but. So it may not necessarily have been so, but certainly in our house, that was true.
And is it still pretty much likely to be the case in the western part of Ireland that this happens, or are our kids growing up now more with the video game thing and moving away from live music, as it were?
Oh, I think that, of course it's changed, and there are a lot of other influences, but it's not all such a bad thing. I think there continues to be probably even more music than there was, because there are more classes, there's more access to classes, there are more teachers, there are more types of music, and I suppose there's been an exchange of instruments and songs from area to area, So if anything, I'd say it's as vibrant or more vibrant now than it ever was. There's obviously things that have changed, but there's still a lot of very, very active organizations, and even on a smaller level, individual people giving classes and so on. Whether it's actually whether in a family you're talking about, I suppose, what you're asking me,
yes,
that would be a tradition. Maybe that's not as true, but it's like anything else. There are certainly resources out there for any family who want their children to learn music. And if you like music yourself, it does pass on by osmosis, I think, to your kids.
Now, as you were growing up, did you have any kind of singers or musicians that you particularly admired and who became influences on your career?
Well, when we were growing up, I suppose, because, I come from a family of 8 children, and I'm the 7th out of those 8, so the older ones certainly would have been influences on me in the sense of their taste in music. That's in terms of what they would bring home, in terms of vinyls and recordings and so on, but in the household itself, I suppose the biggest influence was my father and his kind of eclectic interest in music. He was a Gaelic speaker, as we all were, but he was very good at what they call the Irish sean-nós singing, but he had a huge amount of enthusiasm for all sorts of other kinds of songs as well. So we would have had in our house, I suppose, recordings of kind of different things that I wouldn't have probably associated with the house in West Kerry, sort of almost light opera kind of music. And he would have loved things like John McCormack now and people like that. And himself and my mom probably would have been of that era where they'd love that. So that filtered down to us. As regards my own influences, and you asked about a career, certainly you wouldn't grow up with the sense of having a career or something like that in music. It was just sort of a bit of an old bit of fun, really. I think I was influenced definitely by my older brothers and sisters. Like, they would have brought home Fairport Convention albums and Neil Young albums and Joni Mitchell albums, and they definitely influenced me because I just liked them, and there was a very open kind of an outward-looking kind of attitude to music in our house, and I think it's still there. I think, and I have that in my house now, still with my own children, so I think it goes on, Now,
your first album came out in 2001, and it was called Time to Sail. So what sort of led up to you actually making that, that transformation from, liking music, playing music, to actually, making a CD and becoming a more professional musician?
I think a couple of things. one of them was just the influence of people that I had been singing with, and coming from a place like Dingle, I'm sure are aware that there's quite a lot of music here, but there's also a lot of musicians living here. There was a good friend of ours, it was an American man called Steve Coulter, and I had been singing and performing in some folk concerts in town that he was organising. And his brother William Coulter is a renowned guitarist in the States, a fantastic friend and a great guitarist. He had been also working with me and, playing a few gigs and so on. And between the two of them and a few more people who encouraged me, they sort of said, well, it's possible to do this. Whereas before I would have said it's possible to do it, but I wouldn't have actually done it. He had a studio here in town. It was a small studio. It was very accessible, and it wasn't a bit intimidating. So they encouraged me, and I sort of made a small little leap into recording. I was teaching full-time at the time in high school, and my principal was very supportive, I suppose, of a tour that I got involved in that year, and so I was able to take some time off and do a tour, and that sort of started it, I suppose. So it was really people around me encouraging me, but also having the practical thing of actually being able to record, rather than sort of being a little bit ambivalent about whether it was a good idea or not. I just sort of they pushed me into it, and I did it.
Well, let's play a little bit of music from Time to Sail, and the track we chose is the first one on this album, Nead na Lochan, which I'm probably murdering, but talk a little bit about that.
That's pretty good.
Okay, talk a little bit about this track, and then we'll play it.
Well, the first thing is that I believe that when you're singing in Gaelic, and people may not always understand what you're saying, that a good choice is to sing a children's rhyme or a children's song. I think that's probably true of any language. And this is called Nad na Lachan. I would have learned this in primary school, when I was very young. And it's just a little rhyme. The name actually means the duck's nest. Nad is the name for a nest, and a lacha is the name for a duck. And it's just a little rhyme. As you can hear, it's repetitive. It has a nice timing, and it's the same tune as a jig they call the Fox Hunters, or a slip jig they call the Fox Hunters. So, it builds up nicely, because with the encouragement of the musicians that were with me at the time, with the percussion and just adding a little bit to it, and I put a little bit of a break in myself on the whistle, and it just sort of built up then. Okay. And everybody, I think it's a lot of people's favourite tune on this record.
All right, well, this is Eilis Kennedy, and this is Nead na Lochan from Time to Sail. You're listening to The Voice and the whistle of Eilis Kennedy, my guest today. And Eilis, let's talk a little bit about that whistle, because that appears on other albums. And it's again, that's a very kind of Celtic instrument. Talk about that.
Well, it is a Celtic instrument. That particular instrument that I'm playing there is a Susato whistle, which they're made in the United States. But the instrument, it's a Celtic instrument. It is very easy to carry around, which is one of the reasons that a lot of people play it. And obviously it's versatile. You can have lots of different whistles that will fit into a little case, and you can kind of swap them around. And I think it's something that has always been a feature of sort of sessions that I've been involved in, that you just kind of whip out a whistle and play a few. Not too many. I don't know a whole lot of tunes, but I've been learning more and more over the years, and forgetting even more than that. But it's a nice instrument to play, and it's pretty, as I said, it's pretty easy to bring it around. I enjoy playing it.
No, it seems as if you have really stuck with your kind of Irish roots here. There was no sort of divergence off into rock and roll or anything else.
Oh, well, I like listening to rock and roll, but you have to find where your voice fits, I suppose. And where mine has been sitting, I suppose, is in the traditional, I suppose, area. You know, I mean, I like to sing other kinds of songs as well.
But your voice really does very much fit that kind of Irish music that speaks to the heart and soul of Ireland.
I think that a lot of that has to do, well, some of that, not all of it, but some of that has to do with language, though, that if you grow up in a household where you hear, you know, a lot of Gaelic spoken and it's easy slipping off the tongue, then, you know, that kind of, you fall into singing in Gaelic a lot, and then, of course, you fall into singing in a particular tradition. But we've tried, I've always tried, though, to do a little bit of my own thing, though, with some of the Irish traditional songs. And so, as you probably have heard, maybe or over the years, then I've done other things as well, but also with the traditional Irish aspect in mind, but maybe not always sticking to the regular maybe way of looking at it, you know. But it's definitely rooted very strongly there, for sure.
Now, Eilis, before we take a break, we're going to play just a little bit from the wonderful song Who Knows Where the Time Goes, which is by Sandy Denny. And you mentioned Fairport Convention, of course, and she came out of that tradition. But what does this song mean to you?
God, it means so much to me, really. Very hard to say in a short few sentences. It's probably the song that made me fall in love with singing. I mean, I always liked singing, but it made me fall in love with the idea that you could, I suppose, sing a recently, well, I mean, in the sense that it's almost a traditional song now, I suppose, but it was written by Sandy Denny. As soon as I ever heard it, I just thought it was an extraordinary song. Maybe because I live in West Kerry and the images that are in it as well, the birds and the evening sky and so on, although they probably could be anywhere. I liked that idea. It's very wistful and very, very expressive, and it can be very happy and it can be very sad.
All right.
I think it's my favourite song of all time. Yeah.
This is Who Knows Where the Time Goes, Eilis Kennedy.
Deserted shore, your fickle friends are leaving. But then you know it's time for them to go.
The voice of Eilis Kennedy, my guest today, and that is from her album Time to Sail. We're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back.